Joining me right now, Democratic strategist and former advisor to the Obama campaign, Amisha Cross, and Brendan Buck, MSNBC political analyst, and previously served as press secretary to former VP candidate Paul Ryan. Welcome to you both. Good to have you back again. So, Amisha, we have new polls from the New York Times and Siena College that show Harris making big gains in Sunbelt states. She is leading Trump among likely voters in Arizona and North Carolina and cutting down his lead in Nevada and Georgia, although within the margin of error. But overall, how significant is this? And what do you think these numbers suggest?
I think it's very significant. It showcases that this is a race. This is extremely competitive. The places that were considerably hurt during the Biden run have now become more in play for Kamala Harris. We know that she has expanded that map. We know that she has expanded the demographic reach, and we know that she's going after those suburban voters. She's going after evangelical voters. There's evangelicals for Harris, for goodness sakes. We haven't seen Democrats do that in at least in my lifetime. We're also seeing more and more people of various demographics, young people, older people, middle class, individuals who are at the poverty line. Everybody in between is aligning around this campaign. And I think that as we walk into the post-DNC, as we walk into the Labor Day holiday, we know that over $300 million is going to be invested in campaign and digital ads. The majority of that money will be in digital ads. I think we're going to see more of a swing towards the Kamala Harris campaign after that as well.
How about you, Brendan? Give me your interpretation. Is this a bad sign for Donald Trump?
Well, let me say the swing that we have seen in the last several weeks is nothing short of historic. It's remarkable how much the Democrats' position has improved. At the same time, it's still a very close race here. And, you know, this is following 3-4 weeks now of some of the best press coverage any candidate could ever ask for. And Harris has not exactly shot ahead of Trump. I mean, she is probably the favorite by a little bit. That's why I think this week is really important. You typically, of course, are going to get some type of convention bounce. This is perhaps, aside from the debates, assuming they happen, her best chance to introduce herself to the country. And what I'm curious about is, where is that ceiling for Kamala Harris? Are we already starting to hit it, or does she have more room to go? Because, again, this has been a fantastic stretch for her, and yet Donald Trump is still right there. He could very easily still win this race. So we got to see whether there are still enough people there that could push her ahead. But obviously, those polls show that she has a lot more paths to victory than Joe Biden could have ever imagined.
So, look, I appreciate the question that you've just raised, Brendan, and I'm going to ask it of you, Amisha, in a different way. As we look ahead to the DNC, look, candidates can usually expect a bump in the polls after the convention, right? And the vice president has already seen a remarkable boost after replacing Biden on the ticket. But how far ahead could she be by the end of this month?
I think the sky is the limit for Kamala Harris at this point. After the DNC, we're going to see a monumentous boost in the same way that we saw when she initially came out. She's been out of the gate running from day one. And I think that at this point, she is not only shown to be amazing at fundraising, but also organizing on the ground. And probably more importantly so, organizing in those key battleground states. What we're going to see is an alignment of Democrats, moderates, the people who are behind Nikki Haley, Republicans as well, at this convention. And I think that the holy trinity of Democrats is going to be speaking. We're going to see various generations come together in support of this ticket. We're also going to see a path forward. I think that it was extremely strategic and smart for the vice president to outline her economic policy leading into this, because America is hurting, quite frankly, and being able to talk to American families about ways that you can reduce costs is huge. But there is no limit to how high this campaign can fly. And I don't think that that's going to be negated by the DNC. It's only going to get greater after the DNC is over.
I'm curious your reaction, because you're smiling. I'm going to actually call it a smirk, my friend, Brendan. So give me a sense of your interpretation. Look, is it a legitimate question to say, given how high she is, and there's no denying that the enthusiasm, she has captured it in a remarkable way these last few weeks, but is she so high that maybe the bump will be smaller after a convention?
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that's something that I'm curious about. I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, but of course there is a limit. It's not the sky. We're a very divided country, and nobody is ever going to get more than 52, 53% on their best day. And that's just the reality of who we are as a country. And this is still a very, very critical period. As bad as Donald Trump has been in messaging and figuring out how to hit her, they are also going to be devoting a lot of resources on the air, on TV, defining her as a liberal in a way that is perhaps out of step with a lot of the country. Some of these ads that he's throwing them up on Twitter. They're all over the place, pulling up old things that she said. People don't have very strong opinions of Kamala Harris. They probably have better opinions than they did before, but they're probably still quite malleable. And if you can convince enough people that she is far too left of center for the country, there's going to be a real limit because a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. And that's why this week is so important for her to tell people she's not a radical.
Yeah. Can I ask you quickly, Brendan, before we take a break with you guys, the Washington Post reports that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. tried to meet with Harris to discuss serving in her cabinet if he supported her and she won. The Harris campaign did not respond to these requests. Kennedy denies he wanted a job with Harris. Is he becoming less relevant to the race? I mean, even as a spoiler, what do you think the chances are he drops out?
I mean, this is a guy who's driving his numbers down to zero, and now he's asking for a lifeline. I can't imagine anybody's looking to bail him out. He was relevant when Joe Biden was on the ticket because you had a lot of Democrats who said, "Look, I can't vote for him, and maybe I need a third party." This double hater concept that we've long talked about, people not liking either candidate, allowed an opening for a third party. That doesn't exist anymore. A lot of those double haters have moved over to Harris. And RFK has just revealed himself to be a pretty awful candidate, maybe an awful human. And so he's not going to attract a lot of attention. I would imagine most of the people who are still sticking around for him are probably more likely otherwise to vote for Trump. So I don't know that Kamala Harris is going to be doing anything to bail him out.
You want to quickly weigh in, Amisha, on the RFK Jr. factor?
No, I agree with that. At the end of the day, when there were two seniors on the ticket for both of their parties, it made more sense. RFK is null and void. I don't know how you run after killing a bear cub and placing him in a park. I don't know how you run after the brain worms. I don't know how you continue to have that conversation when time and time again he's proven himself to not understand policy, to be an anti-vaxxer, to be someone who's more akin to the far right, in addition to, I think, some of those online portals of doom, than someone who can actually be taken seriously in policy and administration. This is a guy who has done his level best to denigrate his family's name and legacy. He's done.